Hi there, everyone. We're described the scene of the burning bush in this week's Parsha. And before we're told that Moshe saw this bush on fire and it wasn't being consumed, we're told the background of the story. Moshe was tending to the flock of Yitro, his father-in-law. And he brought the flock, Vayinhag et Hatzon achar hamidbar, Vayavo el har ha'elokim, brought them to Choreva, the mountain of God. Chorev is also known as Har Sinai. And the question is, why do we need to be told that Moshe was tending to the flock and Just say he one day he saw a bush that was burning. We don't always get the background to every story. Why was it important that we know that Moshe tended to the flock and that's how he ended up there? Again, on a simple level, okay, so you're just giving me the background to the story. But the Midrash sees here perhaps extra information that we can learn something from, a valuable lesson and a valuable message as to why it is that from being a shepherd, Moshe merits this encounter and this meeting with God. So the Midrash Tanchuma says the following: Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu notein gedula la'adam ad shebodko b'davar katan v'achar kach hu ma'aleh legedula. God does not ascribe greatness and give a stature of greatness to people until he checks them out with something smaller, and after they have passed that test, the smaller test, the davar katan, then God ascribes upon them and gives them a position of greatness. The Midrash goes on to give two examples. Shnei gedolei olam nivdeku v'nimtzu nemanim. Two great people were checked out in such a fashion and found to be faithful. V'haviyon hakadosh baruch hu legedula. And so God brought them into positions of greatness. Who are these two? Well, let's meet the first one. Badak liDavid Batson. First, before David HaMelech becomes David HaMelech, before he becomes a king, and he becomes great, how does he earn that greatness? Well, the test came through the flock, the sheep. Me'asa David, what did David do? Holichan lamidbar laharchikan min hagazel. David HaMelech took his flock far away from other people's fields because he did not want his flock to eat. He didn't want his sheep to eat from others' property. He didn't want them to steal. How do we know that he did this? And he took his flock to the desert in his early days. Sheken Eliav achiv omer lo, his brother Eliav said to him, Al mina tashta me'at hatzon ahina b'midbar, as they were in the precipice of this battle with Goliath and the Philistines. His brother tells him, Eliav tells him, you left the flock in the desert? You're coming over here to talk war with us? And who's tending to you left them in the desert? Meaning, David HaMelech took his flock to the desert. That's where he took his sheep. Furthermore, I'll add, the Midrash doesn't say this. We know from his conversations with Shaul and Shmuel Aleph that David HaMelech protected his sheep. He said, what do you mean? I've been preparing for this moment my whole life because of the sheep. Every time there's a bear or a lion that wants to hurt my sheep, you know what I do to it? I take it down. I could take down this guy, Goliath. And he does. Midrash continues. Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, nimtzeita ne'eman halatzon, since you're so faithful with how you deal with the flock, ani emsor lecha et tzoni shetirei otam, I'm giving you my flock, the Jewish people. You can shepherd them through the journey. The Midrash, a few lines below, continues and says, who's number two? There were two people who passed such a test, where they were checked out with something small before they became great. V'af Moshe haya ro'eh etzon yitro. Vayinhaget hatzon achar midbar. Where was Moshe when he was with the sheep? He was in the midbar. Why was he in the desert? L'harchikan min hagazel. Because he did not want that flock to ever eat of anyone else's property. So he took them far off into the desert. Amalo HaKadosh Baruch Hu nimtzeita ne'eman al hatzon. Look how faithful you are with how you deal with the sheep. Ani emsor lecha tzoni shetinhag. I am going to give you my flock, that you should lead them. As the pasuk in Tehillim says, Nachita katzon amecha biyad Moshe ve'Aaron. You led your people like a flock, God, by the hand of Moshe and Aaron. Now, what is this Midrash trying to teach us about this moment in Moshe's life? And I think what the Midrash is trying to answer is the question of how did Moshe become chosen by God? What characteristics stood out about him? And we know about what he did in Egypt, standing up to the Mitzri and striking down the Mitzri as the Israelite is being beaten. And we know he stands up for the daughters of Yitro at the well when he runs away. And that's how he ends up meeting Yitro in the first place and marrying his daughter Tzipporah. But what else? Is there something else we're not seeing in the picture of why Moshe? I think what the Midrash is trying to hint at is that in these scenarios of both David HaMelech and Moshe, if they conduct themselves in the privacy of their home, or in this case, in the privacy of the desert, when no one is looking, they do the right thing, God says, you're the kind of person who needs to lead. Because you don't just do the right thing because people are watching you. But you do the right thing because it is what is right and it is what is just. And you're not worried and concerned about what other people are going to say. But you stand up for what is right and what is good. That's the kind of person who should be a leader. I think that we all have this lesson to learn. That what we do when no one is looking, when it's just us and the sheep and God in the desert, is really reflective of who we truly are and reflective of whether or not that person is going to be the best leader for the Jewish people, for our communities, for our country, for our family. Are we that kind of faithful person who we just do the right thing because it's right? That's why Moshe Rabbeinu was Moshe Rabbeinu, because he knew what every situation needed to be, how it needed to be handled, even when you're not around anybody else. I hope this has been insightful about Moshe's background in leadership, and I hope that you all have a wonderful, happy, healthy, and restful Shabbat.